Want to learn how to be flawsome? A new word for me. It means loving yourself and your flaws, accepting yourself for the way that you are and making allowances for yourself like you do for other people. Emma Lloyd, the founder of Create the Ripple, helps people to do this every day. She is a really special human being, and this conversation is jam-packed full of amazing takeaways for you. I would get a pen and paper. It's packed full of quotes and insight and understanding and gentleness and kindness. Oh, you're in for a treat. You are in for a treat. We start at the beginning, a very good place to start, with the first question. Enjoy. The whole topic is about love, as you know. Who would you say taught you how to love?
It's an easy one for me, which is my mother and father. So I was adopted, and I think even when I was younger, I might not have really understood what that really meant. But now looking back, and certainly in the last however many years of adulthood, for two people to effectively bring somebody into their life that, you know, wasn't their own, as it were, I can't even begin to think about that level of love and generosity and care. And I am who I am. I'll always say, I'm sure I would have been happy anywhere, and, you know, different paths we take. I'm so lucky to have been brought up in unconditional love. And that lesson that they taught me is why I do what I do. I just want to pay it back, which is, you know, they effectively, and my sister as well. So so we're both adopted from different families, but it's like you've opened up your home to two girls, and hopefully we gave a little bit of love back, but I'm sure we weren't the easiest either. So I'm very grateful that really showed me unconditional love.
It's amazing, isn't it? I know friends of mine that have adopted, and it's just an amazing thing to do to someone. A gift.
Yeah, I think adoption, fostering, just when you're opening up your home, to help to support, and you are effectively showing love. It's something which you can't even put a price on. And I think it was only then, maybe having my own children as well, realizing just how much of dedication and care and support they'd had. And it was interesting. It was the times when you sort of get a telephone call, they went through such a process to get us, and then it was like, yep, okay, come and pick them up. And there I was. So always grateful. And my dear late father, I think of him every day. My mother I'll speak to every day, just because I just want them to know how grateful I am.
I bet they're really super proud of you.
I hope so. I do. I think sometimes it's interesting. It probably put a little bit of pressure sometimes, because I'm wanting to make sure they are proud. And of course, my mum will say that as well. And interestingly, last night, my youngest son said something to me, and he's going through GCSEs, he's doing mocks, and his results are he's doing pretty well. And he said, you know, it's good, important to have goals. And I'm talking, you can tell he's got a coach as a mum. I've been talking to my friends about what goals they've got, and it was just really lovely. And he said, I've told people that I want to do well for myself, but I want to do well because I want to pay you and Dad back.
Oh.
And I stopped, and my instinct was to go into, no, do it for yourself. And I paused, because I said, Henry, I get that, because that's how I feel about everything I do, wanting to pay back to my mum and dad, mama and grampy as well. And we sat there in silence for a bit. It was a lovely little moment of just, yeah, I get that. And to have your son say that is like, gosh, that meant a lot.
Yeah, that's total 100 mummy brownie points.
I know. but it was that element of recognizing that. And he said, he went on, he said, you know, I want to do well for this reason and that reason as well. But he said, you know, that, and we did talk about that, you know, that paying back, and that's not from a financial sense, I think it's quite linked into that feeling of love and pride and really wanting to show somebody that actually what they've done has made a difference, I guess, as well. So, but yeah, that only happened last night.
Oh, bless. What are your loves then? What do you love to do?
My loves are, I do love what I do on a daily basis. So from a work perspective, but I think it's more than just sort of, people might look on the face of it and go, or you work a lot or anything, but I don't even see it as work. I feel so blessed to have found something that I enjoy, that some of it's natural, that I'm learning as well. And ultimately, if I really peeled it back, it's, I have a love for kindness. My biggest passion in the world is kindness, whether that's kindness to other people, kindness in what we're doing on a working basis. Just, it's something that, honestly, like, if I can witness kindness, if I can express kindness, it gives me the sort of hairs stand up every time. Whether I'm even in a session, a virtual session, if I can witness kindness happening, my eyes well up, I'm all emotional, because I just think kindness makes the world go round. And I feel very blessed that I'm in a role that is allowing me to almost live that passion out, because I'm really aware that there's so many people that are in roles or situations which they don't feel that they feel trapped, or they don't feel they have the opportunity. So I think some of what I'm trying to do as well is, if we can help to support people just to have a little bit more belief, a little bit more understanding of the potential, hold a little bit of hope, that for me as well is all about what kindness is. But yeah, my passion is kindness. And I guess because my role is very much around sharing kindness, I'm very lucky there too.
You should be in Frome at the moment, because we have a kindness festival at the moment happening in our town.
Gosh,
Yeah.
I should be there.
Yes, you should be there. Yeah, it's a week-long festival with loads of different events. Kindness in the workplace, kindness at home, kindness parenting, how kindness can weave into our society and our lives. And it sounds like such a small thing, but it's a really challenging thing to do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
sometimes.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. I think that if you look at really broadly the world we're living in, sometimes you switch on the news or otherwise, you look at a newspaper and it feels as though we're living in quite an unkind world as well. I really liked us and myself, and for others, I believe, and I have an unwavering belief, that we are innately kind. I think sometimes that gets a little lost because of everything that we're going through individually or others. And so that's not me saying it in a naive way of like, kindness will change the world. But kindness will change the world, as in it might be our world or someone else's world. And for as long as I can remember, I've always advocated that never underestimate the small things that we do. So the text message out of the blue, or a little gift, or even just stopping when you're passing someone in a street, instead of the very sort of like, morning, and moving on, or even this sort of avoiding eye contact. And I've been there myself. This is not, I'm certainly, even though I've got the quote, I'm no Mother Teresa. If I'm busy and full on, I do that as well. But I've also noticed that sometimes maybe that person, maybe that's the only interaction they're going to get in the day. And just to say a couple of extra words, or to slow down or interact as well. Kindness can be the smallest of acts. It can be bigger acts, but I think even in companies, we lose sight of the small stuff. We come up with these big initiatives or engagement or here, but actually the moments of gratitude, the moments of kindness, I truly think that with more of that, we're helping individuals, which means then we're helping teams, organizations, communities, and society as a whole. So I think innately we are kind. Sometimes we've lost some of that because of everything that we're experiencing or we've been through, particularly in the last few years.
You could be explaining love like love is a very it's a word that you don't use in business, and it's a word that I've not really delved into in my years of facilitation. But it shows up, and that's what that is. It's about that care and connection, and it's a practice. Kindness is a practice, and it's something that it's a doing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a verb. And I think you're right about that word love, which is, when even nowadays, kindness is talked about a bit more. If we rewind 5 or 10 years ago, and I would be talking about kindness and connection and gratitude, and people thought, oh, Emma, it's so fluffy, stop it. Well, actually, it's not. And people are aware now as well. And I think we're on the same journey with love, which is the moment you say, actually, we want to create an environment where people feel more love in the workplace. And people are like going, oh, God, it's almost a bit awkward, isn't it? It's like, don't say the L word in a corporate environment. And yet, love is so important, again, innately to us as human beings. And I think it's the ancient Greeks, I think it was, that they have, so the word love, but they had lots of different meanings for the word love. So whether it's platonic love, family love, unconditional love, service love. And I think that's where people find it more tricky, because we think of love, Valentine's Day with a big heart, commercialism, as opposed to breaking it down into, I would say, almost redefining love. And love is kindness, love is care, love is listening, love is showing up, love is so many different things. So I think, actually, how can we redefine love so that people are talking about it more, to realize, again, it is what makes the world go round?
And that's what we're doing on this podcast.
Indeed.
This is the advert for it all. It is using love as a tool, and trying to get away from that hearts and flowers, Valentine's, and just really understanding when my friend gave me that advice when Oshan, my son, died, it was like, in my darkest time, look for the love. And you're just like, no, this is impossible. How can I do that? But it's there every day. And it's in them, as you said, that text message from a friend or a smile from a stranger. It's all of that energy. It's a force. It's a force. And I think we can tap into that force, but it takes a little bit of effort. And it also takes a little bit of understanding, and very much linked to the way that we love ourselves, I feel. So how loving are you to yourself?
That's a really interesting one, because I think that's the one that I find trickier. Isn't it fascinating? I can give out, I would say, so much love, kindness, care, understanding, belief to others, as in like it's almost a bottomless pit, unwavering. But when I put it onto myself, I think you're right. It's I'm not always particularly loving to myself. I'm very critical of myself. I'm really harsh on myself. I'll often say to people, some of the stuff that I say to myself, I would never say to another human being. I wouldn't even say it to somebody that maybe I had a bit of a barney with or something like that, as in, it's just unkind stuff. And that makes me really challenge, actually, where does that come from? How can I be more loving to myself? And I think it is something, it's a work in progress. I think a lot of love for yourself comes from acceptance. So actually just learning to be more accepting, and also, it's again the reframing. So yes, I care very deeply, which means therefore sometimes I critique myself. I'm very harshly. However, I've reframed that to say I wouldn't want to get rid of that, because that's almost saying then losing the very essence of who I am. So again, it's being a bit more gentle and accepting of myself, that I probably am always going to be a bit harsh on myself, but that's just who I am. I am somebody that personalizes stuff, or I can be very sensitive in situations. That's who I am. And actually loving myself is recognizing that it's that great expression, being flawsome, being awesome despite our flaws. But also really wanting to be able to do that, to support the authenticity then of, as I say, I can give love freely. I really want to be able to give myself that same love as well.
So what I'm hearing is that it's something that is a part of you, that you can observe and maybe question and maybe look at it and hear the voice, maybe not leave the voice, maybe just sort of go, oh, that's the voice. That's my voice. That's my harsh, critical voice popping up again. Hello. Haven't heard from you for a while. Thank you. Thank you. And I think it's having that, almost interjecting with some kindness then, and giving yourself, it's not quashing that sound, but it's about observing the sound.
Yeah, absolutely. So she even has a name. So her name is Fretty. So Fretty is part of who I am, and Fretty appears. But it's interesting, when I'm a bit tired, when there's stuff going on at home, when maybe something's not quite working out at work, Fretty comes out for all to play. And I'm really comfortable, actually, even now talking about it more, because I think we all have our inner Fretty. We don't talk about it enough, which means that it becomes something that it really doesn't need to be. And that when we talk, like in this environment or other environments, and people go, oh, yeah, I feel like that. I think that also is a massive part of self-acceptance and loving ourselves, because actually we are much more gentler usually with others than with ourselves. So again, one of the best things I will always have, I've got a little post-it note, and I'll certainly sort of share it with others as well, which is that age-old classic of, well, what would you tell a friend? In this situation, what would you tell a friend? And so why aren't you giving yourself that advice? Because with friends, we're like, oh, don't be silly, or it's not a big deal, or really supportive. And again, not in a naive way, but we do it in a real sort of heartfelt way as well. That did just make me think, though. There was somebody that introduced me to a phrase called loving critic, loving boot, loving critic. And I think that's really important, is that some of my critique of myself and or sometimes of others comes from a place of love. Because when we really love people, we want them to be able to explore their potential and opportunity as well. And I love the phrase of loving critic, which is actually, just because we are in a critique situation doesn't mean it's all doom and gloom. It's because we love someone so dearly. So I think that care thing for myself, I'm also recognizing that some of that as a reframe is because I want to do well. I want to reach my potential. I want to continue caring deeply as well. And we can't do that just by everything all being rosy as well. So I think that's just an interesting sort of additional thought or perspective.
Yeah, I think it sounds similar. I listened to something yesterday from the wonderful Elizabeth Gilbert, and she was saying the happiest people that she knows are the people that love all the parts of them. And I just thought, yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because by you criticizing your inner critic, so double criticizing, by you criticizing your inner critic is a sign of rejection. There's a part of you rejecting that of you. So it's going, again, being kind to the inner critic.
Yeah, absolutely. Fretty's a part of who I am. I rather than being too sensitive or oversensitive, or people will say overthinker, I've reframed it. No, I'm a deep thinker. I am a deep thinker. And that actually, my sensitivity is why I do what I do today. So I am so grateful for something that for many years, whether through education, early career or otherwise, was almost criticized, which then created that self-criticism. Now it's like, no, I wouldn't be doing what I do now if I didn't have that level of sensitivity. And I think some of the connection that I'm able to create is because of the honesty around that sensitivity as well. It's like conversations like this. The more we're talking about this stuff, the more we're normalizing it away from this feeling of once in a lifetime love. You might meet your one love and that's it. And I think we've almost built it into something that's bigger than ourselves. And if you get that, then you're lucky and keep hold of it. But then it almost feels unachievable, rather than love is everyday moments. Love is just listening to somebody and connecting and feeling. That's love. Love is, as you said earlier, the smile, but a heartfelt smile to someone where you really are wishing somebody well. Love is me sitting in a hotel room in complete silence going, gosh, I'm appreciating this moment as well. And I think the more we make love every day, the more then it feels achievable for people, which means then the more we're going to see, well, the ripples of love. Of course, I'm going to say ripples, but the ripples of love as well.
If you want to see fear, you will see fear. And if you want to see love, you will see love. You just have to look for it. And that's what my dear friend said to me. You've got to look for it. And
Yeah.
it's practice to keep on looking for it. And that's to ourselves and to other people.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that again is whether it's love, kindness, positivity, these words, sometimes they have connotations which almost are almost negative connotations of, oh, you're too loved up, or you're too positive, or all the too muchness again. And I relate in that when I was in a hospital side room and my father had a heart operation, but the heart was fine, but the brain wasn't. So he'd suffered catastrophic brain injury at both sides of the brains, hypoxic. And I was with the consultant, mother on one side, and it probably was literally like a side cupboard. And there was about 10 people in there, I think, 8, 9 people. And I said, okay, so what can I do for my dad? This is my payback time after everything he'd done as well. And the consultant looked and said, there's nothing you can do. Your father won't get better. And in that moment, I chose positivity, I chose love, I chose kindness, which is, okay, so if I can't make my father better, what can I do about the situation? How can I bring joy to it? How can I look after my mother? He loved fish and chips, so we would try and get him fish and chips once a week or once a month. At the time, it's a few years ago now, but we arranged for Love Film DVDs. So even though he couldn't really watch or communicate, there was something on in the background as well. And we chose as a family to look for every opportunity possible. When he survived for a number of years. He then caught COVID, and it was just in the first lockdown, it was a really tough time. And I remember I went to my mum and I said, we're going to make the best of this, as in however we can, because we weren't allowed to visit my dad. And I said, what would dad want us to do? I said, Dad would want us to have a glass of wine. And because you had to have the 2 meters and outside, we measured it out. And we've got a photo, both with gloves on, bottle of wine in a 2 meter period. And we shared a glass of wine. And it's a little thing, but I absolutely advocate what you shared. It's what you look for. And that I do acknowledge that that's really challenging for people, dependent on what situations they're in, potentially as well with regards to their physical, their mental health, just so many things that might be working against them. I truly believe the power that if you can find that little glimmer of light and hope and joy and love, then actually, yes, when we view the world through love, it expands.
Where do you think that there is a love shortage now?
I think we live in a world that the pace is relentless. I think that people don't necessarily feel that they have time to pause and slow down. I would go as far as to say there's a love shortage everywhere. As in, I really, again, when we think about the definition of love as an everyday moments, I think we all have moments of joy around us that we're missing because we're too busy. We're missing because of societal pressures, because of societal mental health, physical health, or otherwise. And I think, again, if we can just find those little moments to almost rebuild it, then that will help us as well. I think we don't have to look too far, as I say, around the world where you can see real moments of actually just wanting to extend some love. Sounds a little morbid to say this, but I've always thought that as a eulogy of a passing or something happened to me. So again, I'm sounding a bit morbid. Hopefully nothing does. I would have a request in my funeral that everybody went away and did one thing for themselves or for somebody else. And if they did that, then I feel that that's a little bit of a legacy of kindness and love. But rather than wait until my funeral to share that message, that's what I'm trying to do now, which is actually how we can start to build up some of the love deficit is in the everyday moments. And I think it very much is around that sort of spreading kindness is, I think also, given so many people have different situations, loving ourselves a little more and being a bit more gentle with ourselves means then we're probably more likely to be in a position to listen a little more or understand a little more of others. So whether that is extending it to others, whether that's ourselves or otherwise, or some of us may be in an opportunity to spread that love a little wider. But I really feel strongly, which is you don't, it was, and Frankie says, well, we don't need to wait, for that moment. We've all got that opportunity right now to just do something in this moment that actually starts to expand that love. And I think love is a wonderful energy. It does create ripples, and then those ripples become waves and so on. But also never resting on our laurels, because I think actually sometimes we can, if I think in organizations, we do something, we go, there we go. It's like, well, yeah, but the world's changed. The world has turned 360 degrees, and today we might need a slightly different lens. So I think there's a love shortage all around us, and in lots of different ways, we all can do a little bit to try and help to fill that deficit.
Yeah, defo. As much as we can.
Agree. Let's go. Come on.
Yeah.
With our sunglasses.
Yeah.
Only see.
Yeah, with only left.
And I know that sometimes people will go like, oh gosh, it's Emma or it's George, and they're all big. And it's like, I get excited about it because I know the difference that it makes to others, to myself, or otherwise. I also know that sometimes people are just having to maybe step a little outside their comfort zone, feel a little courage or bravery, or do something a little bit out of the norm. But an expression I use is, if we always do what we've always done, people used to say we get what we've always got, but that doesn't happen in 2024. If you always do what you've always done, we're going to get left behind. So if we don't do something differently, actually, it's not even that we're just going to get what we had before. We're going to find ourselves in a worse situation. So it really is, what can we do differently that's going to help us?
We all know the answer to that. I'd like to say that we all know the answer to that. There's that thing inside us that goes, like, I'll think to myself, well, that would mean me not being on my phone as much, or it would mean me phoning my mother more, or it would mean it, if we sit there for a couple of moments, we all know the thing. Yeah. I think we all know the thing.
I think we do. I think that also does feed into the redefining, which is when you say, right, how are you going to show more love? I think for a lot of people, our mind goes to, okay, so what am I going to need to do? I'm going to need to plan, or I've got to set time. So I think there is also a piece around helping to raise awareness, educate, talk about, discuss. And sometimes when I'll talk about kindness and I'll go, well, that's kindness, those little things. And they'll go, oh, but I do that. And I go, oh, great. So actually, maybe there's an opportunity of just doing that a little bit more of the time. And so I think actually the redefinition of what are we talking about will help to gain the momentum. For some people, I think the blocker is that they're some of the negative connotations or some of the amplified connotations, as opposed to, no, we're talking about everyday moments. We're talking about just in the here and now, what could we do just to extend just a little bit, just a millimeter more than maybe you would have done. And that's okay. Some days you might be able to do a bit more. Some days, actually, you showing up is going to be demonstrating love. And that's great. That's more than enough. That's wonderful. And so I think it's about being a bit gentler, but also helping people to maybe understand and redefining what that love means or looks like as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's my goal anyway with this podcast, to just get love out there. Rebranding love.
Rebranding love. I love it. That's a tagline.
Oh, thank you so much, Emma. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for your energy. I could have spoken to you for a very long time. And some of the things that you've said has just made me think that I'm on the right path, that I'm on the right track. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. And I think what you're doing, where it's coming from, the passion, but also knowing, as we said earlier, over the last sort of 8, 9, 10 years, the different paths and everything like that, if we can help to support to create a world which has just a tiny little bit more love, oh my gosh, how could that not be on the right path?
Thank you. Are you feeling flawsome? Has it worked? I absolutely loved that conversation. The quote of that conversation: when we view the world through love, it expands. Oof, as Oprah says, that is an aha moment. I love that. And it's true. It really is. It's so true. If we choose to love, and if we choose to see the world in a loving way, our world does get bigger. It does open opportunities, and it does help us go through difficult situations to be on the other side of them. Like, I am living proof of that. We could start a love movement today. We could do that by doing one kind act for someone else or yourself. Like what Emma was saying about her wish, her legacy. We can do that today, and it could make a huge difference. Something so small, something that doesn't cost any money. There's something that you could do for yourself or for other people. We may not be able to fix the love shortage overnight, but it'll be a really good start. If you'd like to contact me, I'm on Georgina at georginajones.com, or on Instagram, inspiredgeorge. Until then, share the love. Goodbye.